Hi, welcome back. This is Jim McKinnell at Planning for a Career in Health Professions. I want to get the big one out of the way. There is the hurdle that we all seem to sort of wrestle with when we're talking about applying to medical school or any of the health professions programs is, what GPA do I need to have? And I think that we need to talk about it because I think that there are a lot of false ideas about what GPA any of us as candidates have to have in order to be really competitive to get into medical school or any of the health professions programs. So one of the things that I'm going to tell you right up front is you don't need to have a 4.0 GPA. So if you have a C somewhere in your academic record, don't worry. Your professional goals are not dashed. You still have a chance of getting into the health professions program of your choice. And I also want you to be aware of something that too often we simplify too much, and that is the idea that people look at a GPA as a monolithic thing, a number that isn't interpreted other than 3.78. That simply isn't the case. When any of the health professions programs receive your applications, they have a complete copy of your transcript. They have records of every course that you've taken in college and the grades that you achieved in them. And so that's important to remember, folks. If you've done college work at a community college someplace and you've transferred onto a four-year institution, and you've gotten credit for that work that you've done in the community college, but the grades went away and so they weren't factored into your current GPA, that isn't going to be the case when you actually apply to a health professions program. Every program wants to see original transcripts from every institution that you attended. So those C's that you might have gotten in Gen Chem 1 at a local community college that suddenly went away and are not a part of your current GPA at your four-year institution that you're getting your bachelor's degree from, those are going to come back and those are going to be included again in your calculated GPA. But that being said, we look at GPAs not simply as one single number. Yes, they do look at the GPA first as an overall number, but then after that, what they do is they look at your transcripts and they pull out your science and math scores. Now that's really important. You know, they say, and we'll talk about majors and what majors should you have or declare when you're in college if you hope to get into medical school. And one of the things that you should have heard is that you can major in anything and apply to medical school, and that's absolutely correct. But you also have to remember always that medical school is a very, very rigorous curriculum that is science-based. So yes, you can major in psychology, you can major in fine art, you can be a dance major, and you might graduate with a 3.8 GPA in dance, but you need to remember that in medical school, you are going to be taking no dance courses. So yes, you might have a 3.8 GPA, but then the admissions committees are not, they're going to be really curious about what you got in science and math. So they're going to look at your med school prerequisite courses. So let's talk about GPA. We look at it once, first overall GPA. Second, we pull out science and math courses, and we look at the calculated GPA just from your science and math courses. All right? Then some institutions may further define things or refine the way they look at your transcripts, and they may specifically pull out your prerequisite courses. So there are, and you need to be familiar with all of the prerequisite courses for any of your desired health professions programs. But those programs may then pull out your required prerequisite courses and look at your GPA in your required prerequisites. So we have overall GPA, we have science and math GPA, and we have prerequisite GPA. But we're still not done with the way people can look at your GPA. And you have to remember too, now, we're all human. And when any admissions committee, which is made up of human beings, looks at an application, they're also very, very interested in your academic development. That is, where did you start academically and where did you end? So to that end, and the concern there is that we know that sometimes the transition from high school to college can be bumpy. You know, it is kind of trippy when you leave home for the first time and you go off to a four-year college, and suddenly there's no one waking you up, and there's no one cooking your breakfast, and there's no one doing your laundry, and all those, no one's making sure you go to class, that you do your homework after class is over. And so sometimes it takes a little bit of time and effort, and unfortunately a couple of mistakes to figure out exactly what we need to do to be as successful in college as we were in high school. And admissions committees know that. They know that that phenomenon exists. So what some institutions do, and our institution, the University of New Mexico School of Medicine, our institution definitely does that. They weight your GPA. So they understand that if there are going to be hiccups in your academic record, that in all likelihood, those hiccups are going to occur in your first year of undergraduate work, maybe leaking into the first semester of your second year of undergraduate work. All right? But everyone expects that you will have hit your academic stride by your junior year. So because of that, the University of New Mexico School of Medicine looks at your GPA and they weight it. They give your first year grades a weight of 1. Your second year grades are given a weight of 2, and then everything from your third year on is given a weight of 3. So it is a weighted GPA that our institution uses when they make their final evaluation and their final point assignment on your GPA. All right, so that's one of those things I want you to sort of be aware of, is that yeah, a C isn't a deal breaker. You know, you need to understand it's all in context, and people know that. And so it's not a black and white deal. People, when admissions committees get your transcripts, when they're looking at your grades, they're not just looking for one number. They're looking for a variety of different numbers, and they also, as I said, want to look for academic development. Are you a better student now than you were when you started? Do you have skills now that you're applying which lead to success in your academics that maybe you didn't have fully developed when you started your undergraduate career? So those are all very, very important factors to keep in mind. So it's not a one-shot deal at all. So it's not just, oh, you have to have a certain GPA and that's not it. Now, there's a couple of things that we do need to be aware of, though. One of the things that we don't ever want to lose sight of is the fact that all of the programs now in the health professions are highly competitive. And that's just the reality of the situation. So yes, you do need to be a good student. A 2.7 GPA overall is not going to get you into medical school, almost across the board. All right. Now, there are some exceptions to that, but you need to sort of understand that. What's a competitive GPA? I think that if you look, and you can go into the MSAR, the Medical School Admissions Requirements, it's an ebook that's available on the aamc.org website. AAMC is the Association of American Medical Colleges. They're the organization that create the MCAT, and you go onto their website to register for it, and that's where your grades are reported. They also create and distribute the standardized application that are used for all medical schools called the AMCAS, AMCAS, the AMCAS application. They do that as well. So it's an important website for you to be familiar with and for you to explore. But also available through that website is the MSAR, and that ebook profiles every medical school in the country. And if you need to subscribe to it, and it's $35 or $40 or $50 a year to subscribe, but if you subscribe to it, you have access to all kinds of data on every single program in the country. And you can see you can see their median GPA, but you can also see the GPA that represents the 10th percentile of their class, the 25th, 50th, 75th, and 90th percentile. So if you want to have an understanding academically, if you're competitive, when you're thinking about applying to a certain program, use the MSAR, go to that school, and you can look at the information that's posted there about the GPA of their current class. I would also say there's a ton of information in that book, including the same kinds of information which is available for MCAT scores at each of those programs. So that gives you an idea. But I think that if you want to think generally, am I going to be competitive? I think that probably the vast majority, maybe 85 or 90%, and I don't know this for a fact, but I think the vast majority of people now that are applying, certainly for medical school, and I would say that it's close to this for the rest of the health professions programs, have GPAs of 3.5 or higher. Now, that does not mean, and I don't want you to hear that if you have a GPA less than that, that you're not a contender, all right? I will share my own experience when I applied and was accepted to medical school. I had a GPA of 3.2. Now, why was that? I had completed an entire undergraduate degree in political science and had achieved a grade point average of 3.0 for that degree. I wasn't planning on going to medical school at the time. I was a political science major. I thought I was going to be in the diplomatic corps. Didn't happen. I worked for a few years and decided in the course of working that I wanted to come back and try and get into medical school, which meant I had to take all of the prerequisite courses. That was such a blessing for me because if I'd taken those courses my first go around in my undergraduate life, I would have gotten B's and C's in them, I'm sure. Fortunately, I didn't take them. I came back, and now I was working with a purpose. I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew what I had to achieve in order to, academically, in order to have a shot at being successful and getting into medical school. So I came back and I took all the prerequisite courses. I took some additional science courses, blah, blah, blah. I did well. And when I applied to medical school, as I said, I had an overall GPA of 3.2. But if you pulled out my science and math scores, my GPA was more like a 3.7. All right, so that's the kind of thing I mean. And that's why it's so important to sort of understand why we do that. We know that there are instances where an overall GPA may not reflect an individual's abilities academically to succeed in medical school. Okay, very, very important, guys. I really, really want you to sort of think about that and take it to heart. I don't want you to get discouraged. I've talked to way too many students that are just excellent people and are going to make wonderful doctors, and they're freaking out because they have a C in Gen Chem 2 or in physics. Don't worry about that. One other thing that I'm going to suggest here, a lot of times in a lot of places, people say, oh, your prerequisite courses are so important that if you get C's in them, that we recommend that you retake the course for a higher grade. And I'm going to tell you now, don't do that. All right? That fixes a number. But let me tell you why I'm saying don't fix the number. If you retake a course for a higher grade, that's great. If you got a C+ the first time and you get a B+ or an A the second time, good for you. But all that tells an admissions committee is that if you're given a chance to do the same material twice, you get better at it. Well, we all do. So when you do that, when you're just sort of doing the cosmetics of like fixing a number, you're not really sharing anything, or you're not giving the admissions committee any information that is of value to them. All right? The rest of the story is, I also want to be clear, when you apply, even though you've done grade replacement, you now have a B+ in organic chemistry instead of that C-, or rather not the C. C- is you do have to retake because you have to have minimum of C for all of your prerequisite courses. C- you'd have to repeat, but a C you wouldn't. But if you do grade replacement, you get a B+ in organic instead of that C. Remember that when you apply and your transcripts are submitted, the admissions committee will see both of the grades. They will see the original C and the B+, and both of those grades will also be factored into your GPA. The C does not disappear. The C lives on in your AMCAS application. So I hope that this helps a little bit. If you have questions about GPA and the significance of GPA, talk to your advisors there, talk to other people, see what they say. But I really do. I'm trying to preserve the mental health of the pre-health professions students that I work with. Be calm. A C is not a deal breaker. You can do this. All right, guys, thanks a lot for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.